My name is Grace Williams, 34 years old. Until that night, I thought I understood what love meant. Quiet dinners, inside jokes, shared dreams of a house with a balcony garden. Then, over a half-finished glass of red wine, the man I loved looked me in the eyes and told me he felt trapped. Howard's voice was calm, almost clinical. I just need space, Grace. I love you, but I want to explore my options, temporarily. I laughed a small, confused sound that didn't belong to me. Explore, I asked. Like a trip to Bali, or like dating other people. He reached across the table, taking my hand as if he were offering comfort instead of betrayal. I don't want to lose you. You're my rock, my home base. But I think it's healthy for us to see what else is out there. You know, for perspective. He said us, but I heard me. The soft background music at the restaurant suddenly sounded like static. I remember the waitress glancing at us. She must have sensed the storm about to break. You want an open relationship, I said flatly. Howard smiled, relieved I'd understood. Just for a while. I've been talking with Hannah from my cycling group, purely platonic, but there's a spark. I want to see what that's about. There it was, a spark that would burn everything down. And what about me? I asked, forcing my voice to stay even. Do I get to explore too? He chuckled, a sound that made my skin crawl. Sure, if you want. But let's be real, Grace, it's harder for women. Guys chase excitement. You've never been that type. He didn't even say it cruelly. Just matter of fact, like describing the weather. That was the part that broke me. Not the betrayal, but the assumption that I'd quietly wait for him to finish playing. My throat felt tight, but I smiled. You're right, I said softly. I'm not that type. He exhaled in relief, mistaking my composure for acceptance. You're amazing, you know that most women would freak out. I knew you'd understand. Maybe this will even make us stronger. I stared at him, this man who thought maturity meant letting him cheat with a permission slip. Every memory, our first apartment, the late-night talks, the ring he once hinted at, started dissolving in real time. So when does your exploration start, I asked. He checked his phone casually. This weekend, maybe. Hannah invited me to a wine tasting thing. You could catch up with your girlfriends. Make it fair. Fair. The word tasted like rust. That night, back in our apartment, I sat in the dark while he showered. The sound of running water covered the tremor in my hands. I wasn't crying. Not yet. He walked out, humming, towel around his waist, talking about his gym schedule. Then he kissed my forehead like I was some patient creature who needed comfort. Thanks for being so understanding, babe, he murmured. You're one in a million. When he turned off the light and climbed into bed, I stared at the ceiling, eyes open. The silence was deafening. I thought of all the times I'd defended him to friends who said he was too self-centered. I thought of how he'd tell me I was lucky to have someone like him, a man with ambition, confidence, options. And I realized something cold and steady. He didn't love me. He loved having me. At 2:47 a.m., I got up quietly and walked to the kitchen. The city outside was silent except for a siren in the distance. I opened the fridge, saw the half-finished cake from his birthday last month, vanilla his favorite. I took a fork, carved one bite, and whispered to the empty room. You want fare? I'll show you fare. I didn't know it yet, but that was the moment everything began, the moment the quiet woman he underestimated started taking back her power. Howard thought he was opening the door for himself. He didn't realize I'd already walked through it. It's strange how silence can turn into strategy. The morning after that dinner, I woke up before Howard sat at the kitchen table and stared at his phone charging beside the toaster. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I already knew everything I had to know, that he believed I'd wait like an obedient pause between his adventures. He came out smiling, freshly shaved, smelling like cedarwood and new beginnings. Morning, babe, he said, kissing the top of my head. I was thinking of taking up hiking with Hannah. You should do something for yourself too. Maybe yoga. Yoga. The irony almost made me laugh. He'd always mocked yoga too slow, too spiritual. Now suddenly it was a suggestion. Maybe I will, I said, keeping my voice even. Maybe I'll start today. That afternoon, I signed up for a class. It wasn't about yoga, not really. It was about balance, breathing, pretending not to break. That's where I met Eli Tran, the instructor. 36, warm smile. The kind of man who listens before he speaks. He didn't flirt, didn't scan me up and down, like most men do when they sense vulnerability. He just noticed my silence. You look like someone learning to exhale again, he said after class, handing me a towel. I smiled politely, something like that. We talked for a while, small things, posture, breathing, where he grew up. It felt safe. Safe in a way that wasn't suffocating. When I came home that night, Howard was on the couch scrolling through his phone, laughing at messages I pretended not to see. He looked up distracted. "Oh, hey, you're back. Hannah says hi, by the way." "Tell her I said hello," I replied. The way his head jerked up slightly, just slightly, told me I'd landed the first invisible strike. Days blurred into weeks. Howard's freedom became his favorite conversation topic. He'd come home from dinners with Hannah, from brunches with other women whose names he never bothered to remember. And he'd talk to me like a therapist he didn't have to pay. "It's crazy out there, babe. These girls, they're fun but shallow. It just makes me appreciate what we have, what we have." I smiled and nodded, while my mind built walls, brick by brick. Meanwhile, Eli kept asking if I wanted to stay for tea after class. Eventually, I said yes. He brewed ginger tea and told me about his divorce. Quiet pain spoken with honesty, not self-pity. There was something cleansing about it. Not romance, not yet, just truth. "Do you ever feel like someone hit pause on your life without asking?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. "Every day, until I decided to hit play myself." That night I dreamed of pressing play. 2 weeks later, Howard bought a new shirt, slim-fit navy, too young for him. He tried it on and turned to me like a teenager seeking validation. "What do you think Hannah says? It brings out my eyes." "She's right," I said. "You look available." He laughed. "You're getting sassier lately." "I'm just matching your energy," I said, smiling thinly. He didn't hear the warning in it. I started going out more. Not lying, not sneaking, just living. Dinner with friends he'd never bothered to meet. Drinks with coworkers who once stopped inviting me because I always said, "Howard doesn't like late nights." When he asked, I told him the truth. "Just catching up with people." "Good," he said, distracted. "It's good for you to socialize." He didn't notice how easily I said the next part. "You were right, Howard. The dating market isn't that hard." He froze mid-scroll. "What?" Nothing, I said, and went to shower. By the 3rd month, the apartment had changed. Different scents, different rhythms. He was always gone: wine tastings, networking dinners, overnight, cycling trips. And I was busy too: yoga, coffee, with Eli weekend painting classes I'd never had time for. We'd turned into polite strangers who shared toothpaste and lies. One evening I came home early. Howard's jacket was gone, but his laptop was open on the table. I didn't go through his messages. I just looked at his wallpaper, a photo of us from years ago, smiling at the beach, sunburned and naive. I stared at that girl, the version of me, who believed love was something you earned by being endlessly patient. I whispered to her, "You can stop waiting now." That weekend, Eli and I met again, this time at a quiet cafe instead of the studio. It wasn't a date, not technically. But when he smiled across the table, there was something electric in the air, unspoken but undeniable. "You look lighter today," he said, like someone finally stopped carrying someone else's shadow. I laughed softly. Maybe I just learned that love shouldn't feel like a contract. He didn't reach for my hand. He didn't need to. Just being seen without being owned was enough. That night, Howard came home late, drunk on red wine and self-satisfaction. He sat on the bed, loosened his tie, and looked at me with lazy affection. "You're different lately," he murmured, more confident. "I like it. Hannah says I should be careful or I'll lose you." I looked at him, really looked at the man who once made me believe stability was love. "Maybe she's right," I said softly. He laughed, not understanding. And as he turned off the lamp, I realized something beautiful and dangerous at once. I didn't need to explore to find freedom. I just needed to stop orbiting him. Howard had opened a door he thought led to adventure. He never realized it led straight to his own undoing. The first time Howard brought someone home he thought I wouldn't notice. Lip gloss on the rim of a wine glass. A faint trace of floral perfume that wasn't mine. A second toothbrush in the bathroom drawer. He didn't even bother to hide it well. Maybe he thought I'd gotten used to the smell of betrayal. He walked in that night, whistling the sound of a man proud of his own lies. "You're still up," he said, seeing me on the sofa. "Couldn't sleep," I replied. "Long day. Met someone from my cycling group for dinner. Hannah." He hesitated for a beat. "No, a new friend, Mila. She's cool, you'd like her." "Cool." I smiled without warmth. "I'm sure I would." He didn't hear the steel behind it. At work, people began to notice my change. I stopped apologizing for existing. I stopped saying sorry before speaking. Confidence is contagious, and men like Eli noticed. One afternoon, after a long meeting, Eli walked up to me with that familiar half-smile. "You have this way of making a room quieter without saying anything," he said. "Is that a compliment or a warning?" I teased. "Both." He asked if I wanted to grab lunch. I said yes. That lunch turned into 2 hours of stories and laughter about nothing and everything. He never once asked about Howard. He didn't need to. I think he could feel the ghosts behind my smile. When we left the cafe, he held the door open and said softly, "If anyone ever made you believe you weren't enough, that's their blindness, not your truth." The words lodged themselves somewhere deep, where all the unspoken bruises lived. By the 4th month, Howard was bragging openly. He'd tell me about his adventures the way someone would discuss office gossip. It's funny, some women think open relationships mean I'm emotionally unavailable. Can you imagine? Yes, I said, pouring my tea. Hard to imagine. He didn't even catch the sarcasm. He'd started dressing differently, too. Tighter shirts, cologne that could choke a room. It was as if he were auditioning for the role of man in demand, and I was the background extra. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed with new energy. Not from dating apps, I'd deleted those, but from people who saw me again. Lena, one of Howard's coworkers, texted me out of the blue. "Hey Grace, I heard you and Howard are in an open thing. Is that true?" I hesitated before replying. Apparently so. Wow. Then he must not have told you he's been bragging about it around the office. Bragging. Yeah. He said you're the kind of woman who's too nice to ever play the game. My chest tightened, not from hurt anymore, but from clarity. He wasn't just unfaithful, he was proud of it. "Thanks for telling me," I texted back. Anytime she wrote. Then added, "By the way, I've always thought you deserved better. Maybe one day coffee." That message lingered on my screen longer than it should have. That weekend, Howard came home early, unexpectedly. He found me sitting on the balcony with my sketchbook, something I hadn't touched in years. "Didn't know you still drew," he said. "Didn't know you still cared," I replied. He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just that it's been a while since you looked at me without checking your phone first." He tried to joke it off, but the air had shifted. For the first time, he felt the distance. Later that night, while he showered, I looked at my reflection in the mirror, not searching for flaws, but for evidence. Evidence that I was still here, still capable of desire of choice. And in the foggy glass, I whispered, "You're not waiting anymore." The next day, I met Adrian. It was at an art exhibit downtown one Lena had invited me to. I almost didn't go, but something in me needed to breathe outside the ruins of our apartment. Adrian was standing alone, staring at a painting of a burning ship. He looked grounded, the kind of calm that only comes from surviving something. "What do you see?" he asked when he noticed me watching the painting too. "People who thought they had control," I said, "and the sea reminding them they don't." He smiled. "That's one way to look at it. I see release. Maybe the ship needed to burn to stop pretending it could sail." Our eyes met, and for the first time in months, I felt seen. Not desired, not judged, seen. We talked for an hour about art storms and how people confuse love with ownership. When he asked if I wanted to grab coffee, I said yes without hesitation. That night, Howard asked if I'd ironed his shirt for his client dinner. I said yes, even though I knew it wasn't a client. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger meant I still cared. He smiled, absently, kissed my cheek, and left. The door clicked shut behind him. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and texted Adrian back. "Thanks for today. It was unexpected." He replied almost instantly. "Good unexpected, I hope. The best kind," I wrote. Outside, the city lights blurred into gold streaks. Inside, I finally felt something close to peace. Howard thought he was living his best life collecting adventures like trophies. He didn't realize he was slowly losing the one thing he could never replace. And me, I was done waiting for the storm to pass. I'd started building a new home in the eye of it. 5 months. That's how long it took for Howard to become a ghost wearing my boyfriend's face. He still lived in our apartment. Still used my coffee mug, still said babe. Sometimes out of habit, but the man I'd once loved was gone. He'd traded commitment for compliments from strangers. And he believed I was still waiting for him to come home. He wasn't entirely wrong. I was waiting, just not for him. His birthday was coming up in 2 weeks. He reminded me over breakfast like a child dropping hints. "Don't forget October 15th. You always throw the best parties," he said, smiling into his phone. "You want a party?" I asked casually. "Of course. Keep it simple, though. Just friends, you know." "Your friends ours," he said without irony. I stirred my coffee slowly. "Sure, Howard, I'll handle it." He leaned over and kissed my forehead. "You're the best. Seriously, I don't know how I'd function without you." The same line he used to say when I fixed his resume, paid his bills on time, or forgave him for being too tired to talk. I smiled back, but this time the warmth was gone. I was already planning something far better than a party. That week I reached out to Lena. She hadn't stopped checking in since the art exhibit, and I trusted her enough to share part of the truth. We met at a cafe, and as soon as I told her about Howard's birthday, her eyes lit up. "You're not seriously throwing him a party after everything?" "Oh, I'm throwing him something," I said, stirring my drink. "What kind of something?" "The kind where the truth gets an audience." Lena leaned in, smiling like she'd been waiting for this moment too. "Tell me what you need." I started making a guest list that night. Every woman Howard had explored during his so-called freedom phase, Hannah, Mila, Kara, and the others, had unknowingly left digital footprints. Screenshots, messages, stories. Some he'd deleted, but not carefully enough. And then there were the mutual friends, people who'd heard his side of things, believed his stories about how supportive I was. They were all about to see the other side. I also invited Eli because despite everything, he'd been the one constant light during the darkness. I didn't tell him why. I just said it would be nice to see him there. He hesitated, then said, "If you're sure, I'll come. Just tell me what to wear." "Something that says truth looks good on you," I replied. The night before the party, Howard stood in front of the mirror, trying on shirts. "Red or black?" he asked. "Red," I said without looking up from my laptop. "It'll help everyone remember you. You think so, I'm sure of it." He smiled, proud of himself. "You're still my biggest fan." "Always have been," I whispered. October 15th came dressed in perfect irony. Bright sun, clear skies, and the scent of rain waiting behind them. By 6, our apartment was glowing with candles and laughter. Music played low, elegant, expensive. I'd catered his favorite food, ordered a cake with 2 new beginnings written in gold frosting. Guests started arriving. Coworkers, old friends, even his sister, who hugged me tightly and said, "You're amazing, Grace. Most women wouldn't be this supportive." I smiled. "If only you knew." At 6:45, Lena arrived with Adrian. She introduced him like it was casual, but the look she gave me said otherwise. "You two met at the exhibit, right?" "We did," I said, meeting his gaze. "I'm glad you came. Wouldn't miss it," he said softly. His calm presence steadied me. He didn't know what was about to happen, but somehow he made me feel less alone in it. At 7:02, the door opened. "Surprise," everyone shouted. Howard froze in the doorway, his practiced smile faltering just slightly before he turned it on again. "Wow, Grace, you really outdid yourself." He moved to kiss my cheek, but I stepped aside. "It's your night," I said. "Enjoy it." He didn't notice the way people were watching. He didn't see the small tension in Lena's grin or the quiet satisfaction in Adrian's eyes. He didn't know that in the crowd were not just friends, but witnesses. I waited until the laughter was loud enough to hide my footsteps, then clinked my glass. "Everyone," I said, smiling before we cut the cake, "I'd like to share a few words." The music dimmed. Howard looked proud, thinking I was about to make one of my sweet, supportive speeches. If only he knew. 5 months ago, I began. Howard told me he needed to explore his options, that he felt trapped. So being the understanding partner I was, I agreed. We both deserved freedom, right? There were murmurs in the crowd. Howard's smile stiffened. "Babe," he interrupted quietly. "Maybe we can. I'm not done." I said, my voice calm, but sharp enough to cut glass. He told people I wouldn't play the game, that I was too nice, too loyal, too soft. But he forgot something. I paused. Soft doesn't mean weak. It means I know exactly how to bend before I break you. Laughter rippled uneasily through the crowd. Howard looked around, searching for help that wasn't coming. "I won't bore you with details," I continued, "but I thought it was only fair that tonight everyone who helped Howard explore also gets to meet each other. So, Lena stepped forward, holding up her phone. A slideshow appeared on the TV messages, photos, half-naked mirror. Selfies all time-stamped neatly. Hannah gasped. Mila turned pale. Howard's sister covered her mouth. Howard's face went red, then white, then red again. "What the hell is this, Grace Fairness?" I said. "You wanted freedom. I just made sure everyone saw what it cost." The room was silent except for the quiet shutter of someone's phone camera, someone capturing the moment he finally understood. "You think this makes you look strong?" he hissed. "No," I said, stepping closer. "It makes me free." When the guests started leaving, no one looked at him. Even his sister avoided his eyes. He stood in the corner, small and humiliated, the red shirt, now a warning flare instead of a statement. Lena hugged me before she left. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I said. "He did. I just provided the mirror." Adrian lingered near the door. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "Ask me tomorrow," I said. He nodded. "Then I'll see you tomorrow." When the last light went out and the apartment fell silent, I sat alone at the dining table, staring at the half-eaten cake. The words "to new beginnings" gleamed under the candles. I took a fork, cut a small piece, and whispered to the empty room, "Happy birthday, Howard." Then I blew out the flame. The next morning, the apartment was a graveyard of half-empty glasses, crumpled napkins, and leftover shame. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, like it was afraid to touch what had happened here. I sat on the floor, drinking cold coffee from a chipped mug, waiting for him to wake up. When Howard finally stumbled out of the bedroom, his hair was a mess, his eyes wild from lack of sleep. "What the hell was that, Grace?" he demanded. "A party," I said simply. "You wanted one. You humiliated me in front of everyone. No Howard. You humiliated yourself. I just turned on the lights." He paced the living room, running his hands through his hair the way he always did when he couldn't control the narrative. "You've lost it. You think exposing private messages makes you powerful? It just makes you bitter." "No," I said, standing. "It makes me done." He started picking up the broken pieces literally. A wine glass, the edge of a photograph, the remains of the cake smashed when someone dropped their plate during the chaos. It was almost poetic, him cleaning up what he'd destroyed, pretending it was fixable. "Grace, I was honest with you," he said suddenly, as if that absolved everything. "You said you wanted to explore. I didn't lie. I gave you transparency. You gave me a front row seat to my own humiliation," I said. "Don't confuse honesty with cruelty." He glared at me, the first real flicker of shame cutting through his arrogance. "So what now, you think you're better than me?" "No. I just think I've finally remembered who I am without you." Later that afternoon, his phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Hannah, Mila, even his boss, who'd apparently heard about the birthday disaster. Every name was another mirror shoved in his face. He snapped and threw the phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. "Are you happy now?" he shouted. "Not yet," I said quietly, "but I'm getting there." He stormed out, slamming the door so hard that one of the picture frames fell. It was the one of us at the beach, the same photo he'd used as his laptop wallpaper. The glass cracked clean across both our faces. I left it where it fell. 2 days passed before he came back. The apartment door opened quietly this time. No whistling, no forced charm. He stood there in silence, holding a small suitcase. "I'm leaving," he said. "I need time to think." "You've had 5 months," I replied. "Grace." He started, his voice breaking just a little. "I messed up. I know that. But we can fix it. I'll stop seeing them. I'll do whatever it takes." I wanted to believe him once the version of me from before would have. But the woman standing in front of him now wasn't looking for repair. She was looking for release. "You don't get to rewrite the story after the ending," I said. "You taught me what freedom looks like. Now I'm using it." He stared at me like I'd become a stranger, and maybe I had. "Who are you?" he whispered. "Someone you thought you'd never meet." That evening, Adrian called. "You don't owe me an explanation," he said softly, "but I heard what happened. You okay?" I hesitated, then exhaled. "It's strange. I thought I'd feel victorious. Instead, it's just quiet." "That's what real endings sound like," he said. There was something in his tone, steady, kind, real. "Coffee tomorrow," he added. "Yeah," I said. "I'd like that." The next morning, I met Adrian at the same cafe where we'd first talked about the burning ship. He was already there, a book beside his cup, sunlight catching the edge of his smile. "You look lighter," he said as I sat down. "Maybe I just stopped carrying dead weight." Or maybe, he said gently, "You finally started carrying yourself." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to fill the quiet. When I left, he didn't ask when he'd see me again. He just said, "Take your time, Grace. Real freedom doesn't need a deadline." That night, Howard came back one last time to collect his things. He moved slowly, deliberately, as if packing a version of himself he could still respect. When he reached the door, he turned to me. "I never thought you'd be capable of this," he said. "You never thought I was capable of anything without you." He nodded, defeated. "Goodbye, Grace. Goodbye, Howard, and happy exploring." He lingered a moment, then left for good. The click of the door felt final this time, no echo, no hesitation. I sat on the couch in silence, watching dusk swallow the city outside. For a long moment, I just breathed. Then I got up, found the cracked beach photo, and replaced it with a new one. A picture from the party taken accidentally by someone when the truth exploded. In it, Howard's face is frozen mid-shock. My own expression is calm, almost serene. I placed the frame on the shelf next to a single candle. "You wanted openness," I whispered. "You got it." The flame flickered, reflecting in the glass like a closing eye. Outside, thunder rolled somewhere far away, distant cleansing. Tomorrow would come, and this time it would be mine. 2 weeks after Howard moved out, the apartment finally stopped smelling like his cologne. The air felt different, lighter, like it belonged to me again. I started waking up early, opening the curtains, letting sunlight fall onto the floorboards that used to creak under his restless pacing. Freedom doesn't arrive with fireworks. It seeps in quietly like morning light through half-open blinds. The first few days I didn't know what to do with the silence. No phone buzzing with his excuses. No clinking glasses or shallow laughter from his late-night returns. Just me and the hum of the refrigerator. I rearranged the furniture, took down every photo that made me flinch, painted the wall in the living room a shade of pale sage, something peaceful. Then I found his old mug at the back of the cabinet, the one that said, "World's Best Boyfriend." I held it for a long time, then set it on the balcony railing. A gust of wind did the rest. The sound of porcelain shattering on the street below felt like a ceremony. Eli texted a few times, checking in. I thanked him, but kept the distance. He was a chapter of my healing, not the story itself. Adrian, on the other hand, never pushed, never assumed. He'd send quiet messages. "Hope you're eating. Saw a painting that reminded me of you. Strong lines, soft colors." One Saturday morning, he asked if I wanted to see it in person. I hesitated for a second, then replied, "Only if we walk there." We met at the corner cafe, the one that used to be ours, mine and Howard's. But that memory no longer stung, it just existed. Adrian walked beside me, not ahead, not behind. When we reached the gallery, I realized he hadn't been exaggerating. The painting was breathtaking, a landscape of a shipwreck swallowed by a golden sunrise. "It's called Rebirth," he said. "Fitting," I replied, eyes tracing the brushstrokes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence felt sacred. "You ever think about him?" Adrian asked gently. Sometimes, I admitted. Not with anger. More like remembering an old version of myself I don't miss anymore. He nodded. "That's growth." "No," I said. "That's closure." As weeks passed, my life began to rebuild itself in small, honest ways. I took a promotion at work I'd turned down twice because Howard said it would stress me out. I started cooking again, real food, not meals tailored to someone else's appetite. Evenings were quiet but full. I'd read draw, sometimes play music loud enough for the neighbors to hear. One night, Lena dropped by with wine. We laughed about everything, the party. The look on Howard's face, the way the universe has a dark sense of humor. When she left, she hugged me tightly. "You didn't just end something, Grace," she said. "You taught every woman in that room what ending right looks like." Her words stayed with me. Months later, Howard's name flashed on my phone again for the first time. A short message. "I'm sorry, I hope you're okay." I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it without replying. Not out of spite, just peace. Some doors don't need to slam, they just need to close quietly. A year later, I moved into a smaller apartment, 2 rooms, 1 balcony, and more sunlight than I'd ever had before. Adrian helped me carry the boxes. When we finished, we sat on the floor, surrounded by cardboard and the smell of new paint. He looked at me and said, "You look like someone who finally found home." "Maybe I did," I said. "And maybe it's not a place." He smiled. "Then what is it, a piece I built myself?" Sometimes I still think about that night, the dinner, where it all started, the word explore hanging in the air like a curse. If I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing, because that word broke me open just enough for the light to get in. Now every morning I walk past the photo wall near my kitchen. At the center hangs a single frame, a shot from the birthday party, Howard's frozen expression as truth hit him and me calm in the chaos. It's not there to gloat. It's there to remind me what happens when you stop shrinking to fit someone else's story. One evening, Adrian and I stood on the balcony watching the city lights shimmer like tiny fires below. He wrapped his arm around me, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was standing in someone else's life. "You ever think about what's next?" he asked. "No," I said. "I just think about what's now." He smiled. "Now looks good on you." I leaned into him, breathing in the quiet night, the scent of rain, the hum of a world that kept turning no matter who walked away. "Howard wanted to explore," I whispered. "And he did. But so did I." "What did you find?" Adrian asked. I smiled faintly, watching lightning flicker on the horizon. Myself. The wind shifted, carrying the smell of new rain through the open window. For the